Welcome to this week's episode of In the Ruck of It, where we take a look at everything that went down over the weekend in the world of rugby and try to predict the outcome of the upcoming games. In this episode, we ask the big question on everyone's minds. Are the Stormers in a rut? And is Evan van Rooyen the right guy for the Lions? We also have a look at what makes Cheslin Kolbe the most electrifying player in the world. We chat about what rugby needs to learn from European football, and with the first round of the Rainbow Cup now in the rearview mirror, I review the new laws and how they impacted the games over the weekend. And finally, what is the latest on the road to the British and Irish Lions tour? So with all that rugby action ahead, let's get in the ruck of it. But before we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Super Rugby AU. Down under, the Super Rugby AU semi-finals were underway, in which the Brumbies beat out the Western Force 21 points to 9 to claim their spot in the Super Rugby AU finals against the Reds next weekend. Super Rugby AU organisers decided on a semi-final that saw numbers 2 and 3 on the log table face off to play for their spot in the finals. The Reds ended up number 1 on the log, which meant they automatically qualified for this weekend's final. After having missed out the last few years of Super Rugby, the Western Force proved once again the importance of relegation with their heroic performance this season that got them into the semi-final playoffs. I really hope SA Rugby is taking a long, hard look at this, because we should be having an annual relegation match where teams at the bottom of the log are facing off against teams like the Cheetahs or any other team who's in form that year to play for their spot in the Pro Rugby tournament. We just saw reactions from around the world regarding European football's Super League. The biggest takeaway from this Super League saga is that what makes European football the most successful sporting league in the world is that any team can make it to the top. Having a yearly relegation match makes the dream that any team can make it to the top possible. Choosing the 4 richest SA clubs to go and play pro rugby will keep SA Rugby from reaching its full potential. If we rather sent the 4 in 4 teams, we would not only see teams like the Pumas and the Griquas or even the Kings grow in strength, but we will also see our top 4 clubs improve dramatically. Our clubs will start playing as if their lives depended on it, because their livelihoods would. So, with Super Rugby AU finals wrapping up the competition this week, who will walk away with the trophy? This weekend sees a rematch of last year's final where the Brumbies beat the Reds 28 points to 23 to claim the title. This year, however, the Reds are just looking too strong to lose it. So for my Super Brew, I have the Reds by 5 points. Super Rugby Aotearoa. The final round-robin week of Super Rugby Aotearoa saw the Hurricanes beat the Highlanders 41-22, while the Chiefs lost to the Blues with a final score of 39-19. Despite a brave effort from the Blues, tying them with the Chiefs with 20 points each on the log, the Chiefs will be the team to face the Crusaders in the final next week on the basis that they won more games. Unlike with the Aussies, the Super Rugby Aotearoa tournament sees the 2 top teams head straight into a final. I must say, seeing the packed stadiums in both Super Rugby tournaments left me green with envy. It feels as if, for them, life has returned to normal while we're struggling to arrange a simple 6-week tournament. This weekend's final promises to be a cracker, with the Chiefs proving to be back to their winning ways and probably the more informed team. However, they are going up against back-to-back Super Rugby champions in the Crusaders. Their last match saw the Chiefs edge the Crusaders by 1 point to secure the win. Now, the bookies have the Crusaders winning by 9 points, which is fair if you're going on historical evidence. But with the form Damian McKenzie and his team has shown this season, I'm choosing to go the other way. For my Super Brew, I have the Chiefs by 3 points. The Champions Cup. The semi-finals of the Heineken Champions Cup played out up north, with underdogs Bordeaux facing off against Toulouse and La Rochelle going up against the only non-French team, Leinster. The semi-finals kicked off with a Toulouse 21-9 defeat over Bordeaux. Bordeaux looked strong in the opening minutes, putting the first points on the board. But as it more often is with smaller clubs, they just couldn't keep it going for the full 80 minutes. Jerome Kainu, who will retire at the end of this year, led his team to victory in terrible conditions, while Antoine Dupont had another flawless performance. Which brings me to my player of the weekend, who is none other than Cheslin Kolbe with his electrifying performance in the Champions Cup semi-finals. Kolbe was on fire, beating multiple defenders, winning balls in the air, and at one point, he kicks the ball from his 10-meter line into the opposition's 10-meter line, all while running the ball down and winning it back from not one, but two defenders down at the other end. He started the game at fullback, where Toulouse seems to use him quite often. But then again, we've seen this versatile player covering everything from scrum half to fly half to wing to center at times. He just shows great intelligence on the field, whether he's stepping players, kicking for position, or taking down players twice his size, which makes him, hands down, for me, the best player in the world right now. Sunday also saw La Rochelle play their way into their very first Champions Cup final as they tore Leinster apart with a full-time score of 32 points to 23. Leinster's discipline let them down in the second half, giving away penalty after penalty. Will Skelton, who played for the Wallabies in 2016, had a sensational game, providing La Rochelle with the front foot ball they needed to come back in that second half. The final is scheduled for the 22nd of May, an all-French affair that promises to be a showdown. The Rainbow Cup SA. The opening week of the Rainbow Cup SA is done and dusted, and what a weekend it was. The Stormers-Sharks game in Cape Town went down to the wire, while up at Loftus, the Bulls sent out their youngsters to host the Lions. The action kicked off in Cape Town, where the Stormers hosted the Sharks. Talk about a game of two halves. This was exciting if you were neutral, but extremely frustrating for supporters of either side. The Stormers won the first half 23 points to 12, but the Sharks came back in the second half, ending the game at 33 points to 30. The Sharks spent most of the first half in the Stormers' end of the field, but just couldn't keep their composure when it came down to the wire. Now, Fassi looked dangerous with ball in hand. He seemed to break the line every time he had the ball, while Sia Khaleesi made a few great runs and finished with a no-look pass to Fez Mbata, setting him up for a beautiful try. Ill-disciplined by the Stormers gave the Sharks multiple opportunities to take 3 points. The Sharks, however, chose to go for the line-out every time. One would think that with the boot of Cohen Bosch, they would take those opportunities and go for the poles, adding scoreboard pressure in crucial stages of the match. The game ended with the Sharks making 0 penalty attempts at goal, while the Stormers had 5, converted 4, all within 30 minutes of the game. Saying the Stormers' discipline was poor would be an understatement. Siabelo Senatla goes off within the first 11 minutes after taking out Fassi in the air. Then a minute later, Engelbrecht puts a shoulder charge on Ruben van Heerden, ending in a yellow card. 6 minutes into the second half, he throws an identical shoulder charge to the neck of Jeremy Ward, leading to him being sent off with a double yellow card, ending up in another red card for the Stormers. The Sharks took advantage of the second red card, leading to Reynal Hugo scoring a hat-trick in 6 minutes, which is completely unheard of for a lock. Overall, this game had me on the edge of my seat from start to finish, despite both teams looking a bit rusty at times. Loftus looked miserable after a day of rain, leaving the pitch in a muddy state. Right off the bat, it seemed the Bulls were not playing their starting 15. I can only think that their focus must be on this weekend's game against the Stormers. The Lions started strong, dominating the Bulls in the scrums, but as we've seen time and time again from the Lions, they just can't keep their composure for the full 80 minutes. Now, this was by no means the most entertaining game, and at times I found myself staring out the window trying to see what my neighbors were up to. The Bulls won both halves, and at full time the score was 24 points to 9. It could have been worse for the Lions, as the Bulls had 4 tries disallowed. Nizam Carr once again led this young Bulls side in the absence of Dwayne Vermeulen, while Chris Smith took up the reins at 10, breaking through the line of defense in the second minute of the game, scoring the opening try. Dan Krill captained the Lions, and in the 8th minute, he throws this horrible pass that is intercepted. The last person you want to see throw a pass like that is the captain of a side. Fred Zellinger, on the other hand, brought some much-needed calm to this Lions team, controlling the game with his accurate boot and his ability to direct play. Wandisile Simelane was on fire, breaking the line at every occasion. His line running put the Bulls on the back foot, but he just didn't have the team support around him to finish. Whenever you thought the Lions were looking dangerous, they would throw away the ball with some no-look pass. Madosh Tambwe seemed to be everywhere you looked on the field. His work rate is just outstanding week after week. He scored a try after receiving a pinpoint kick from Morné Steyn, but it was disallowed due to a line-out that was challenged and deemed not straight. The Lions continued to dominate the scrums, but that is until Lizo Koboka came on and showed why he is a Springbok. There were so many forward passes in this game. Growing up, if the ball moved forward from the point where it was released, regardless of the direction my hand is facing, it would be called a forward pass. End of story. The game ended with Morné Steyn attempting an unnecessary drop kick conversion that ended up missing the upright. Overall, this match seemed like a warm-up for the Bulls, and it should be raising big questions for management and leadership at the Lions. This weekend also saw a number of players going off with injuries. Both the Lions and the Stormers are facing some troubling times with their list of injured players just growing at a rapid pace. Salman Morat, the newly named vice-captain for the Stormers, was left out of the side on the weekend due to a neck injury picked up during training. In an interview, John Dobson confirmed that Morat will be out for the remainder of the competition. Adding to the Stormers' woes, this weekend saw both Kate Voliter as well as Herschel Yankees leave the field with what looked to be knee injuries. Both these players had strong games, with Kate Voliter showing great composure not only at the kicking tee, but also controlling the game in the middle of the field. It was confirmed on Sunday that Kate Voliter will be out for the remainder of the tournament, while we haven't heard anything regarding Herschel Yankees. Tiaan Swanepoel was also carried off the field at the 11th minute with what looks to be an ankle injury, causing even further worries for the Lions. He looked to be one of the most promising players in the Lions camp, and in the absence of Elton Yankees, he would have been key to controlling the game. Now we got to see all the new laws play out over the weekend as the competition kicked off. It was also decided to keep the goal kick timer, which allows 90 seconds for a conversion and 60 seconds to take a penalty. This goal line dropouts law needs to be shut down immediately. The Springboks control the game up front, and the scrum is the soul of SA Rugby. Applying pressure in that 5-meter scrum and winning the scrum penalty right in front of the post is what we do. The red card replacement law worked well if you're a Stormer supporter who faced 2 red cards over the weekend. If you're a Sharks supporter, on the other hand, as I am, you might think that they got away far too lightly. What I will say is that the game was competitive from start to finish, and without the laws, it might not have been. On the other hand, if players and coaches are not making the effort to improve their tackle technique, maybe they should be punished. The captain's challenge, in my opinion, was overused, especially in the Lions-Bulls game. There was also an incident in the Sharks-Stormers game that caught my attention. In the game, Engelbrecht's first shoulder charge was not picked up by the ref. Lucanio asks the ref to check it out, but then Jaco Peper insists that he uses his captain's challenge if he wants him to go upstairs and check out the tackle. Being only 12 minutes into the game, chooses not to use the captain's challenge. As the game continues, there is an on-screen replay, which causes the TMO to inform the ref that he needs to check out the shoulder charge. Now, in a game, we always have captains making suggestions to refs. The ref then checks with the sideline ref, and they decide whether or not they'll go up to the TMO. Does this new law now mean that the ref will no longer consider the on-field communication if the captain's challenge is not being used? I totally get that the ref cannot see everything that happens on the field, but that's exactly why we have sideline officials and why the team has a captain to keep the ref in check. We also saw quite a few youngsters putting their hands up this weekend. JJ van der Mesh comes on in the second half and, as always, makes his presence known right away as he dominates Marvin Orie in the line-out and creates turnover ball for the Sharks. Namatama had an impressive game and really stood out, creating turnover at key stages in the match. He was effective at the breakdown and made strong carries. Grant Williams started for the Sharks over both Sanele Nohamba and Jaden Hendricks, demonstrating the Sharks' depth at scrum half. At about the 52nd minute, he breaks the line with an insane run that ends up creating Reynal Hugo's third try. James Verity Am had an impressive debut for the Bulls, showing great composure. He did well under pressure as he sidestepped the player from behind his own try line and kicks the ball to the halfway line, putting the pressure back onto the Lions. The try of the weekend must go to Damian Willemse and Edwil van der Merwe for their vision in following through and scoring an acrobatic try in the 73rd minute of the game, giving the Stormers a second fighting chance. This try was the definition of turning nothing into something. The gymnastic ability of Edwil to get the ball back in field and the persistence of Damian to follow through was just sublime. This weekend sees the Stormers hosting the Bulls at Cape Town Stadium while the Lions meet the Sharks down in Durban at Johnson Kings Park. In his post-match interview, Bulls coach Jake White said he expects that the Stormers will be fired up after losing this past weekend against the Sharks. He went on to say that Dwayne Vermeulen and Trevor Nyakane are both likely to be back for this weekend to face the Stormers. The Stormers, on the other hand, seem to be a squad riddled with injuries, with Salman Morat, Warwick Gelant and now Kate Voliter all out for the remainder of the season. Do you put that to conditioning, or is it just plain bad luck? Dobson has confirmed that Tim Sweel should be back from injury this weekend, which is somewhat good news for the Stormers. Ruanel will also be unavailable for the Stormers for the remainder of the season, as he will be joining the Blitzboks at the Tokyo Olympics. With the Bulls fielding a more experienced team down in Cape Town, it just doesn't seem likely that the Stormers would come out on top. For my Super Brew, I have the Bulls by +5 points. In his post-match interview, Evan van Rooyen seemed to be in a bit of denial, saying that he thought it wasn't a pretty game, but a good intense battle, and that the Bulls just seemed to pin them down in their 22 in the last 20 minutes or so, causing them to lose the game. I find this to be a bit of a cop-out, and it further convinces me that he's just not the right guy for the job. The Lions were dominating the Super Rugby competition under both Johan Ackerman and Swys de Bruin, making 3 back-to-back finals from 2017 to 2019. Compare that to the last year and a bit, where they've won 8 out of their last 24 matches, not including the Preparation Cup or the Super Rugby Saturdays. The Sharks, on the other hand, along with the Bulls, are looking to be the teams to dominate South African rugby for the next few years. The Sharks seem to have put together a good group of on-field Springboks in the likes of Lucanio Arm, Thomas du Toit, Siya Kolisi, Sbu Nkosi, and Makazole Mapimpi when he finally gets back from Japan. These Springboks bring that level head and experience to what is quite a young team. With Evan van Rooyen's 33% win rate against Sean Everett's 76% win rate in the same period of time, I will have to go with the Sharks for winning this game at home. For my Super Brew, I have the Sharks by +7 points. The British and Irish Lions tour is growing closer by the day, and while we are all still awaiting news on whether or not there will be fans allowed in the stadiums, we can be sure that this tour will be one to remember. It has also been confirmed that Alan Wynne-Jones will captain this Lions side as he makes his 4th Lions tour. Our Springboks are also looking stronger by the day, as this weekend saw the return of key players. After a year-long injury, Pieter-Steph du Toit returned to the field and lasted the full 80 minutes, which is great for SA Rugby. Although his performance wasn't reflective of the 2019 World Player of the Year, I have no doubt that he will be back to his top form in no time. We also saw the return of Andre Pollard, who came off the bench for Montpellier with 22 minutes to go. After an almost 8-month absence due to a knee injury, Pollard's return to fitness is a huge boost for the Boks. This week also saw the news that Archie Snyman will be undergoing another procedure after being injured since last August. At the moment, it seems like we have all our starting locks in a race against time to get fit before the Lions tour. With the current depth we have at lock, does this open doors for those fringe players? And finally, this weekend we saw the Stormers choose to start Skarran Ntembeni over first-choice Springbok hooker Bongi Mbonambi, which left a cloud of questions in the air. Bongi Mbonambi is set to move to the Sharks at the end of the season. In an interview, John Dobson all but confirmed that Skarran Ntembeni's loyalty to the Stormers will make him the preferred starting hooker during this Rainbow Cup series. How does this affect Bongi Mbonambi's performance and or selection for the Lions tour? Last week, I asked whether you think the Pro 16 will go ahead in September, and this week's response comes from Sean O'Farrell. He says he does not see the Pro 16 going ahead until SA is fully vaccinated. He does, however, think they might cut the next season short and try to do another Rainbow Cup. I totally get where Sean is coming from after all the disappointment we faced regarding the Rainbow Cup this year. But I truly hope you are wrong and that we see that Pro 16 tournament go ahead come September. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, let me know your thoughts on this week's games. Do you think there'll be any upsets? And once again, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. Thank you so much for watching.